why he's called that. He's pretty stinky. They're filter feeders, so they're filtering their food out of the water and the pollutants, so they help keep the bay really clean. And then they start to stink after a while. Just got a lot of sponge today. Thank you. Thanks. Alright. These guys go. And actually, you can rip a sponge in half and it won't kill it. Because when you rip a sponge in half, it sinks down to the bottom and they reattach, and they'll just keep budding and growing. So you've now made 2 sponges, which is kind of cool. Now this thing, got 2 of them. These are actually live animals. This is thousands of live animals all living together in a colony. It's called a flat tunicate colony. And tunicates are just little tiny filter feeders. They get this hard covering or tunic, like a shirt, kind of covering their bodies. It feels like rubber. And then they just sit there their entire lives. There's most likely sponges underneath this. They can attach onto anything, blades of grass, sponges. Doesn't really matter. So this, you can touch these. They won't move around on you or wiggle. They're pretty much sedentary. And they come in all different colors and shapes and sizes. Oops, sorry, I don't mean to touch your leg. There's a crab on your leg. Sorry, I didn't want to freak you out. Try to do it in a calm manner. You guys want to touch it? Anybody else? Oh, it feels like plastic. No?
Somebody please.
Thanks. Alright, next thing I want to show you. I'll just show you these real quick. These are pretty important. This is turtle grass. This is what most of the bay is made up of. And on some of them, like this one for example, if you run your fingers down it, it's going to feel kind of bumpy. And the bumpiness is thousands of tiny little plants and animals. They're called epibionts, and they cement themselves onto the blade of grass and just live there their whole lives. These little guys right here, these are okay to touch, but you should be very, very careful about sea urchins picking them up in Florida because some of them are venomous. These are totally fine. Good rule of thumb is to not touch the black ones, because not all the black ones are bad, but the black ones do have venomous tips. So these are variegated sea urchins. They're fine. If you look underneath, you can see his little mouth coming out. It's 5 little pointy white teeth. And wherever they don't have spikes on their body, they have these long, sticky tube feet that come out like tentacles. And they use it to kind of pass food down into their mouth and walk up pilings or hide underneath stuff. Sometimes if you guys are walking on the beach, you'll find a mound of broken shells and seaweed. And if you pick it off, you'll find a sea urchin underneath. Because these guys hate sunlight. And since it's so shallow around here, they try to find another way around it, and they make their own sunblock by putting debris on top. And actually, if you were to hold this guy in your hand long enough, those little suction cups will hold onto your hand. And after about a minute, you can flip your hand upside down and he'll be holding on. It's really kind of cool. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, she was short.
I had, let's see if the last biologist messed all my stuff up. Our little system going here. Ah, yes, okay, good. This one is a relative of the sea urchin. This is called a hairy brittle star. It's a little tiny sea star. They break apart really easily. That's why they're called that. Yeah, just let me go. Thanks. So if a sea star loses its leg, it's not going to die. And it doesn't hurt. Well, it probably doesn't feel good. But they can release their leg off of their body and give it to a predator that's attacking them. And then they can regrow their leg. So, nice little defense mechanism. And sea stars eat with their stomach. They don't have a mouth and they don't have teeth. They actually climb on top of clams, pull the clam shell open just a tiny little bit, and then they pull their stomach inside out and shove it inside the clam shell and digest its body inside its own shell. So when they're all done, they just kind of slurp it back up inside. It's kind of gross. These guys go. Let's see. Oh, we've got a lot of little crabs here. These first little flat ones, these are called porcelain crabs. They're the same color as the garlic sponge. They're really flat, so they can back up against the sides inside the sponge. And it's a really good hiding spot for them. They're just really hard to find. These little guys, these are the baby stone crabs. Remember those traps I was talking about? These guys, when they get big enough, which I believe they have to be 2 3/4 inches long on the arm, then they can rip the arms off and eat them. Which are delicious.
A kick head on her leg.
Don't ever try to open them up without pliers. You get a big hole in your thumb like I did last night. Not very fun. This little guy, this is a baby mud crab. And this is the most common crab in Florida. They're all over the place. They don't really get much bigger than the size of a quarter. These next crabs are really, really nasty. So I'm going to leave the lid on. Just see how they're doing. Actually, they're probably nice and quiet now. These are swimmer crabs. There's two different kinds in here. The one that has red tips is a blue crab. So if you guys are from up north, same as we get up there, Maryland crabs. These guys are also known as soft shell crabs when you eat them. The other one is a purple swimmer crab. Now swimmer crabs have their back legs smushed into a little paddle. So you can see how that back leg is flat. He can swim wherever he wants in the water. He's not restricted to the bottom like these other little guys. I've also got a couple of different hermit crabs. I'm going to separate these guys because they don't really like each other either. A hard time this morning. Hermit crabs, though, do not make their own shell.
Got it?
Hermit crabs actually take the shell from a dead snail, and as their body gets bigger, they have to keep changing out their shell to fit their body, so they won't stay in there very long. But the animal that did make the shell, unfortunately, I didn't get a live snail, but I do have a couple of shells I can show you, and I got some eggs from some of the snails. This one, for example, this is called a lightning whelp. What they'll do, thank you, is they'll take calcium out of the water and just keep adding onto their shells right down this edge here. And it'll keep spiraling around and around. When they reproduce, this is what he's going to lay. This particular species is going to lay this guy right here. It's amazing to think it's like that. I'm sure about the bigger one made this. It's lightning whelp egg casing. And actually, when you pass this around, you see inside those packets, there's little dots. Those are all the baby shells inside. There's usually about 15 or 20 little versions of this guy in there, in each one of the packets. And then the very top of a spiral shell, that little bump up there, that's the baby shell that started out in one of these packets. So they just, right away, as soon as they go out in the water, they start building their shell. So you can touch it. It's not going to move on you or anything. Thanks. Does everybody see the swimmer crabs? How to go?
Well, that's the
Oh, and
egg.
here's another example. I actually found a dead one a couple of days ago with the dried out shells inside. Put them in here, and it's a magnifying glass on top, so you can see those baby shells in there. Now, this next guy, I honestly don't really even know what to tell you about them. Like I said, I've never caught one before, but I know I've seen the pictures because this is a beautiful shelled crab. It's called a calico crab. Lucky us, we got two of them. I don't know if it's mom and baby or male and female, but she's holding on to the little guy. She's got him underneath her. Well, sometimes the she's blowing bubbles. That's so cool. There's a little water fountain. I've never seen them do that. Maybe I'll give her a little bit more water.
I tell you, I need more water.
There we go. She's filter feeding right now. I don't know why she's got the little guy underneath, but sometimes if they're mating, they'll kind of hold on to each other like that. But I've never seen one that small and that big trying to do their thing. I think that's a baby, but she wouldn't be, mothering it or anything. They just they're totally independent of the parents when they're born. It's really weird. I don't know what that's all about. Beautiful shell though. Oh, two dolphins on our left. I'm not sure. I would say scan all in front of us here. It could be very hard. about 8 o'clock.